For some, Final Round indicates the start of the fighting game tournament season, with the major event being the first stop on the Capcom Pro Tour. Joining us today to give us the rundown of Final Round is journalist Amanda Stevens. Amanda, how are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm a little tired. I woke up at 6 a.m. to get back to Troy, New York. So, if I'm not as energized as usual, there's a reason.
Yeah, no, I saw your pics that you were posting, I think, on Twitter. Those were fire.
Yeah.
I hope you had a great time.
Oh, it was a great event. I mean, there's some things that weren't great, but overall, it was a good tournament. I liked the fact that I was surprised that I liked the fact that the Tekken World Tour didn't start at Final Round because we got to see a lot more of the American talent show that they're just as sick as some of the Koreans. So, good weekend.
Were there anything that you saw from the tournament that has improved with this one?
Improved. I don't know. I mean, like, pools didn't go up until Monday, I think, before the tournament, and then there was too many region kills happening, meaning that too many people from the same region were in the same pool, which is something tournaments try usually to avoid. Mm-hmm. So they then scrapped the pools. I think some people didn't know their pools in Street Fighter and Dragon Ball until Wednesday, which I think is completely unacceptable for players. So that wasn't too great. I mean, otherwise, everything was fine. I mean, Final Round is not, the supreme biggest event, so I don't expect it to be ran as the tightest ship possible. So, you take what you can get sometimes.
You take what you can get sometimes, right? So the first Capcom Pro Tour event is in the books with Punk winning it all. We mentioned yesterday that the pools were pretty stacked. So what do you make of his win and some of the other storylines that came out of Final Round for Street Fighter in specific?
Sure. So, it's pretty great that Punk is back in top form. There were some problems he had during last year, some burnout, not having as much fun with the game, having a bit of a character crisis. Mm-hmm. So to see him come back, which has kind of been a rising thing. Once he got signed by Reciprocity, he seems to have been on an upward trend. So maybe it was just he needed the correct org. But there was also some really other great things happening, like Tampa Bison, who is a very well-known Bison player from the Florida area, really lighting into people and showing people that, there's still American talent. We talk about Summit Street Fighter being more of an American game compared to some of the Street Fighter 5, compared to some of the other Street Fighter incarnations. But then, we get lost in, just the same, 20 players that we always hear from. So it was great to see, Tampa Bison, CJ Truth, FGC Jesus, who's a Fang player, lighting up some Japanese players. It was a really great event to showcase that, there's the people you always see on the tour, but when you bring the tour to America, there's people to watch out for from the States.
Yeah, so moving over to Dragon Ball FighterZ, it was pretty interesting at the Final Round. It wasn't a tour event, but still had some of the world's best players. Goichi came out on top, and Japan has, pretty much looked pretty strong. What did you make of it?
So I like how Dragon Ball went. There are some people who are a little upset that, some of the American players didn't do as well. You had Sonic Fox tweeting out that the day before top 24, he was playing 11 hours of the MK11 stress test. Yeah. So we don't know how much of that played into his performance. Mm-hmm. He did look a little rusty, but we do, he had announced as soon as MK11 that, he was streaming more MKX. He was really excited for a new NRS game to play. So there's that. And then, the Japanese players are good. Unlike Street Fighter, where I think that there isn't really a gap between the Japanese and American players, or maybe that there is more of a gap between the Japanese players, but I can get to that at a different time. But in Dragon Ball, I think that the top players just in general, so, the people we saw at the final summoning are just much further away from everyone else. So I'm not surprised that, this event went to Goichi. I could totally see Super Noon or Hook or someone else taking a future combo breaker, right? I don't think that there's that much of a gap between the Americans and the Japanese in this game as people think. And I think it's partially because the Americans are more willing to experiment as soon as the patch start, whereas the Japanese are more willing to, stick to what works, right? None of the Japanese players are really playing Videl. There's only a couple. Whereas we saw it at Final Summoning 2, where a lot of the Japanese players stuck to their tried and true teams, whereas we saw some of the American players, experimenting with things that they thought might be stronger.
I like was just completely blanking on like the big Frieza that got really, what's his name? Cooler. Yes.
So the reason a lot of the Japanese players are playing Cooler is because he has a Dragon Punch.
Yeah, it's like great. Like, and I want to see what they can do with Videl. I think she has potential too, but we'll get into that later. And we can't really talk about Atlanta, right, without mentioning Tekken. So Shadow was the big winner here after an intense match with Trungi. How are you feeling about the American Tekken scene going into the Tekken World Tour this year?
Yeah, so one, I would like to talk about the Tekken World Tour super duper quick, which is that they made some huge improvements to the Tekken World Tour. For example, EVO is now part of the Tekken World Tour. It has not been in the past. They raised the prize pool, something that I was very angry about the last time I was on the show, that the prize pool was so bad for Tekken. So it's great that they're raising the prize pool. Now, to talk about American talent, the American Tekken players are very, very strong. One of the reasons why they have a little bit more trouble making the tour is sponsorships and getting out to more tour stops. Yeah. But when the Americans are in America and they're put against the Koreans and the Japanese and the Europeans, we've seen that the Americans can compete. I mean, we have Joey Fury, right? One of the best players, I would say, in the world, comes out of Buffalo, very strong. He went through all the final round, I think, in pools, not dropping a single game. So, like, that's crazy. Shadow, we've seen him when he is at an event, he tends to make top 8 or top 16. He also, like, ran a train on people at the E-League Invitational. So, like, American players are very, very strong. It's just sometimes I think it's a little bit more about sponsorship and opportunity and the ability to travel.
I think, honestly, they did such a good job of revamping the Second World Tour. Like, it was only a tragedy that Rangchu only got, like $7,500 last time for winning. Like, what? That is crazy. And of course, we've seen a lot of people leaving the scene, but with the revamping of the way that it works, the competitive structure as well, I'm excited to see it for the year forward. And of course, we're going to be talking to you, Amanda. So thank you so much for stopping by today.
No problem. Thanks for having me as always.
Of course, guys, you can check out all of Amanda's content from Final Round through her podcast, The Neutral, which is on Google Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor FM. Go check it out.